I'm calling this City Council voting meeting to order. Today is August 8th, 2023. Apologize for a couple of minutes late. Our study session ran a little bit long, but it was very valuable. So we'll start off with any introductions or announcements, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking around the room. I don't see any dignitaries that I need to introduce, so I'll go right into my announcements. First, as you may know, we are working on the 2025 general plan now, and you are invited to an open house informational meeting about the City of Prescott 2025 general plan and historic preservation master plan on Wednesday, August 30th from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Raleigh P. Simmons Adult Center at 1280 East Rosser Street. City staff will have information and will answer questions. Come to learn more about the general plan and to give your input for Prescott's next 10 years. For more information, you can also go to planprescott.com. Second, the City of Prescott would like to invite anyone that travels along the Highway 89 corridor to visit the SR 89 roadway and infrastructure improvements virtual meeting room to learn more about the proposed project and to take the public input survey on that website. The city is very interested in the public's comments related to the project, and the survey is a great way for the city to gather feedback. The survey is limited to one submittal per person, and the information provided will solely be used for project feedback. The public can also choose to provide their email address if they would like to be included in the project contact list, although it is not required to submit a survey. There is a convenient link on the city's website, www.prescott-az.gov, or the virtual meeting room can be accessed directly at www.sr89improvements.com. Third, last week, the city clerk's office, in conjunction with Yavapai County, successfully conducted our city election. On behalf of the city, I thank the county and the city clerk's office for their efforts. I also want to extend congratulations to Phil Good, Kathy Rusing, and Connie Cantelmi on the re-election, and congratulations and welcome to Lois Furworth and Ted Gambogi. Finally, congratulations to Caborca Sister City Program for winning an award from Sister Cities International. The award is overall best program in the United States for cities with populations between 25,000 and 100,000. Again, congratulations. I think we may, in fact, even hear from the Caborca City representatives in a few minutes during open call to the public, Mayor.
You think that's a chance?
It's an outside chance.
We'll now have a invocation from Pastor Jim Densmore from the Solid Rock Christian Fellowship, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get into presentations and proclamations.
Good afternoon. Would you all join me in prayer, please? Gracious Heavenly Father, it is with grateful hearts that I come before you this afternoon on behalf of this community. Father, we are thankful for this community. We are thankful for this town and the people in this town. Father, we are thankful that they are so committed to each other. We thank you, Father, that it is common for neighbor to want to help neighbor in this community. Father, we thank you for the welcoming and inviting nature of this community as they bring people in who are relocating from different locations and different situations. It is truly a blessing to be a member of this community, Father, and we thank you for that. And Father, we are thankful for this city council and for all those who serve on the committees. We know that this is a difficult and time-consuming role. We know that it requires a sacrifice of their time, and it requires a sacrifice from their families. So we thank you for each one here, Father. We thank you for their commitment to this community. We thank you for their commitment to keeping this community in peace and safety. We thank you, Father, for their commitment to taking care of the people and the organizations that make up this community. To that end, Father, I pray that for all those who are in leadership here in the City Council, all the different leadership roles, and all those that serve in our government here in this city, Lord, that they would be granted your guidance and your wisdom, that they would all continue to make the hard decisions that need to be made with integrity, that the goal would not be to try to please man, but to strive to please you. I pray, Father, that you would grant them insight and courage and the energy and stamina to continue. I pray, Father, that they would be encouraged by what they are doing, that they would receive encouragement, knowing that what they do here is vitally important. Father, I pray all of these things so that this community can continue to flourish here, all of us together in peace and in safety, so that the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ can continue to be spread freely, and that all the decisions that are made here, including the decisions that are made in the schools and in the churches and in all the organizations here in this community, would ultimately be to glorify you and your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name I pray, amen.
Please join me in pledging allegiance to our great republic and this beautiful flag that represents it. We'll now have a presentation from the employer support of the Garden Reserve.
I need
Right
to do roll
after
call,
we
Mayor.
have a roll call.
Thank you. Mayor Good,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Montoya,
Here.
Councilwoman Kentelme. Here. Councilman Moore,
Here.
Councilmember Roosing.
Here.
Councilman Sushka.
Here.
And Councilman Tenney.
Yes.
Thank you. All are present.
Should we have the city manager come down maybe too? That'd be okay? How are you? Good, good. All right, this place is pretty cool. I haven't been in here before. It's good digs. All right, here we go. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, City leadership, and staff. I'm Patrick Kirkendall, a native Prescottonian and resident. In my role as the Vice Chairman for the Arizona Committee of Employer Support of the Garden Reserve, I am honored to come before you today with some insight on previous awards and on the award that will be presented today. The City of Prescott and its leadership has received countless employer awards from the Employer Support of the Garden Reserve. These awards are the Patriotic Employer Award, Seven Seals Awards, and the Above and Beyond Award. In 2013 and again in 2014, while living in California, I was privileged to work with my colleague Butch Wise on the submission of the Secretary of Defense Freedom Award for the City of Prescott. Both of these years, the City of Prescott was selected as a top 30 finalist, but we didn't break the top 15. In 2019, I was honored to work with Melissa Fosick and Fire Chief Dennis Light on a new submission for the Freedom Award. The fire department was nominated for this award by two employees who had deployed numerous times and had been very appreciative of the support by the Prescott Fire and the City of Prescott. In 2019, Prescott Fire Department was selected as a recipient of the Secretary of Defense Freedom Award. In late 2022, I reached out to Melissa Fosick again, and we worked on the nomination for the City of Prescott to receive the Extraordinary Employer Support Award. I am proud to say that in April 2023, we received this beautiful award. Today, I would like to introduce you to Colonel Rick Palmatier. Colonel Palmatier and I served many years in uniform together, and he is the new incoming chairman for Arizona Employer Support of the Garden Reserve. Colonel Palmatier will be presenting this award to the mayor and city council. And in closing, Fire Chief, Police Chief, Joe Bain, it's your leadership that really drives the Garden Reservists to want to work for you. And this award is because of the three of you and citywide for all your support for our Guard Reserves and veterans. Melissa, thanks for working with me. Rick?
Mayor, I hear Pat refer to Colonel when I'm looking around because it's been a while. I don't answer to that name anymore. As Pat said, I'm Rick Palmatier. I am the incoming chair. I am a retired Guard guy. I have worked as an attorney doing veterans disability cases. My heart goes to ESGR and the support that the employers across the state have given to us. So Mayor, members of the council, members of the staff, it's your leadership, it is your assistance that helps those that deploy and their families feel comfortable in that's something I don't have to worry about while I'm deployed, certainly. And that support and that assistance is of immeasurable assistance to those families and a level of calm to the individual who's deploying. ESGR has its roots in a executive order from the president in 1972. So it's a little bit of a baby within the Department of Defense. The statute that it helps to coordinate between employers and the service members has its roots back in 1940. So it has evolved. It has been a long-standing commitment on the part of the federal government that initially those that were drafted knew that they had protections to come back to. It's now a volunteer service, and that same sentiment applies. So that continuity in what the federal government has provided is the same continuity that we see from Prescott. And we are very much appreciative of the atmosphere, the continued support, the sustained commitment to helping those reservists know they don't have to worry about that. So in a sense, this is icing on the cake from the Freedom Award that the fire department won for you guys a couple of years ago. But it's a national recognition. This is not something from the state. This is a competition that's submitted into the Department of Defense, and just like the 2,600 some applicants at the time you guys won in 2020, same sort of competitive process. So again, long-standing support, and it's my honor, it's my privilege on behalf of Secretary of Defense Austin, our national chair Ron Bogle, and all of the reservists here in Arizona and those of us with the Arizona Committee to thank you for your continued longstanding support for a well-deserved, exemplary employer support. Thank you.
We get the fire chief too and the police chief up here.
Melissa?
Yeah, Melissa.
Joe?
Well, speaking as your mayor and also as a U.S. Army combat infantry veteran, it's an honor to receive this award and also to recognize the commitment that we have to veterans in our community. And as the nation continues to rely on reservists and National Guard to protect our country, and even deploy outside of our country to protect those who are fighting for freedom and the principles that our nation was founded on. So for those reservists and National Guard members that are members of our community and our city, they know that their jobs are protected and they can serve and then return and re-employ here, and they'll have the support of our community and our leadership here in the city. So again, thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is the presentation of a proclamation to the 11th Annual Hope Fest, Arizona, that will be occurring on the Courthouse Plaza on August 19th.
Hello, Council. Thank you so much for offering this proclamation. We are so honored to be before you for the 11th year, and it just so humbles me about our community. The last time I saw you, we were sharing a rainstorm on stage, weren't we? We persevered, and I thank you for that. Not only is it a big undertaking to do Hope Fest and bring it to the Courthouse Plaza. It's a huge undertaking financially to bring this free community event that serves our citizens. And we are just amazed about the giving hearts and the charity within our community. We are happy to tell you that over 90 organizations are coming down to the Courthouse Plaza to give services to first responders, military, active duty, as well as the most vulnerable of Yavapai County, family services, recovery, education, a huge family fun zone, a car show that's off the rocks this year, and most importantly, we are laying down a challenge. We started it last year with our theme, Love First, and we have decided it just very might well be our permanent one because we can't wear it out. Love First. Personally, I am in recovery for over 25 years, having gotten my act together here in the great city of Prescott. And while I was in recovery, there's an exercise they would have us do. When you look across the room at that person that you don't know, when you look at a situation that you have no personal investment in, and that first thought, it's usually wrong. Because once you get to know that person, that situation, a lot of times it changes. So if we could teach our community to jump past that preconception, that prejudgment, to love first, extend the hand of grace and mercy, we could change something, even if it's just right here. So that's what we're trying to do. I will invite you to the noon opening ceremony, which our mayor will be there. Mary Mallory will be there, as well as the director of the Northern Arizona VA. We are going to have an amazing ceremony. And we will do what we were trying to do last year, which is to retire the honor remember and the honor and sacrifice flags that took a whole year to travel around our community to collect names of fallen warriors and fallen firemen and first responders on it. And we will do that with many of the family of the fallen 19 and with many of the families. And myself, proud of my 4 boys that grew up here and 2 that gave their lives active duty. So it means a great deal to me. And I would like to, at this time, if Chief Dura and Patrick and somebody else, if y'all could help me hold these flags so we can explain about them. At Hope Fest Arizona 2021, Michelle Parker. Right here. Michelle Parker, mother of Wayne Parker, which we all know, painstakingly wrote the 19 names down. And what it did across the Courthouse Plaza at that moment, there was not a word spoken. It was a way for our community to come together and bond in this moment and this loss and in this memory. And then can I have 2 people come up and help me with the military flag? Oh, this way. This is the Honor and Remember flag, which is adopted by 27 states in the United States, including Arizona in 2012. It is before Congress and will become the national symbol for fallen military. And so these 2 flags were presented at Hope Fest 2021, spent the year collecting these names on it. We are going to present them at Hope Fest on August 19th. They will have one more day to collect names on them. And then this flag will be encased in glass and given to the Northern Arizona VA. This one is going to the Granite Mountain Interagency Training and Learning Tribute Center. I know, I get lost at the end. But, and they will reside there permanently as a historical gift from us. Not only do we have a plethora of speakers coming, please know at 7 p.m. Northern Arizona VA is helping us with the closing ceremony. And we have our Historic Fostering Hope Award, which we have a reputation of surprising a nonprofit that's locally nominated with a plaque, a monetary gift to support their work. Then we are going to have a firefighter dad who's going to give his testimony. And then some of you may know the movie or the documentary about the Congressional Medal of Honor recipient Desmond Doss, who up on Hacksaw Ridge is a medic, didn't carry a gun, but he saved over 75 men. Desmond Doss Foundation is coming because they have been creating a character development series, and they are going to launch it at Hope Fest. And we are going to release that. It hasn't been released anywhere else. And then we have Building 429 at 8 o'clock. And I just can't thank you enough. The town has been so helpful, and the amount of organizations that come out and the stories and the networking that goes on is just amazing. Thank you.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Jaylene. I know you and your staff put so much time and effort into this event. So I think at this point, we'll go ahead and read this proclamation and present it to you. Proclamation, the 11th Annual Hope Fest Arizona, August 19th, 2023. Whereas in 11 years, Hope Fest Arizona has evolved in name and service recognition within our community because of its dedicated mission to serve veterans, active duty military, first responders and their families, and the most vulnerable of Yavapai County to be Northern Arizona's premier community gathering event. And whereas on August 11th, 2023, Hope Fest will lead our community in collaboration with the Northern Arizona VA, area veteran service providers, and first responder departments and personnel. The noon opening ceremony will be community-centered and full of highlights and commemorating the love we all share for our greater Prescott region and its citizens. Whereas following the opening ceremony, the traveling memorial tribute flags will return to the Yavapai County Courthouse to be decommissioned following their year-long journey throughout our community as the flags collected the names of the fallen military on the Honor and Remember flag and the names fallen first responders on the Honor and Sacrifice flag. Whereas the remainder of the day, the beautiful Prescott Courthouse Plaza will once again come alive as guests enjoy local and national recording artists, guest speakers, a multitude of service vendors, 3 streets filled with a car and motorcycle show, and a free family fun zone geared for all ages. And whereas for the 11th year, the Hope Serves Family Resource Fair, local businesses, organizations, churches, and groups will impact lives by meeting the needs of our neighbors in the areas of education, housing, recovery, domestic violence, suicide prevention, mental, social, and health care, veteran family services, and first responder family services, youth advocacy, adoption, foster and elder care, employment services, volunteering opportunities, and more. Families will find hope and know that they aren't alone. Whereas Love First is the theme for the 2023 festival, love is the only thing that can change the unchangeable. Love heals, uplifts, strengthens, energizes, refreshes, and renews. Hope Fest has staked a claim to let love be our highest goal as we encourage our community to take the Love First challenge. Whereas the annual publicity nominating Foster a Hope Award will be announced during a special surprise main stage presentation in honor of the outstanding service commitment by a local nonprofit charity. And whereas both Hope Fest Arizona and the Hope Serves Family Resource Fair are free to the public, This is only because of the incredibly generous support from local businesses, organizations, churches, and volunteers. Thank you, Prescott and the area communities, for wrapping around this grassroots local community outreach for 11 years. We could not do this festival without you. Whereas Prescott's Hope Fest is true passion in action because of the many service providers and advocates, together we are making a tangible difference in the lives of our citizens while showing by example that change is possible. Now, therefore, I feel good, Mayor of the City of Prescott, do hereby proclaim August 19th, 2023 as the 11th annual Hope Fest Arizona Love First Day. So here we go. We'll just do a little.
Okay.
Thank you, Jaylene, and we look forward to this event on the Courthouse Plaza on the 19th. There you go.
All right, as the mayor makes his way back up here, I'll go ahead and get us started on the next item, which will be our open call to the public. The City of Prescott welcomes public engagement. Residents may comment and address council regarding matters that are not included on the posted agenda during the call to the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a green speaker card and submit it to me prior to the meeting being convened. As a reminder, speakers are limited to 4 minutes, and the call to the public will be limited to 40 minutes in total, with the following stipulations. Citizens will be limited to addressing the council on the same topic only 4 times in total. If a topic has been addressed more than 5 times by different speakers, the mayor may limit future discussion on the topic, and topics of a primarily national concern may be limited at the discretion of the mayor. I do have a few open call cards, and our first one is from Will Fisher for Sister Cities.
Is this where I go?
Come on up, Will, and I will say bienvenidos, mi distinguido amigos. Welcome, and it's great to see the hermana ciudad of Caborca, Mexico here.
Yes, thank you very much. And as Mayor Pro Tem Montoya had mentioned, Sister Cities International has indeed honored us by being the best overall program in the United States. And we are, of course, very proud of that. This program has existed for over 50 years and is going well. I'm here mostly to introduce these young people in the back in green, all from Caborca, who are not only members of the sister cities from Caborca, but are students at an English language institute in Caborca. While in the sister cities, we in the sister cities have opened our homes for an intense English immersion where they will have the opportunity to live with us for 1 week and speak only English. So this is their chance to press over into that full-time English work. We're grateful for the support from the City of Prescott, and both Prescott and Caborca have much to be proud of. So thank you, folks, for supporting us, and this is an honor that's well-deserved for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Jerry Haran.
Thank you. Appreciate it. My name is Jerry Heron. I'm an Arizona resident, and I have family in Prescott, and I politically advocate closely with the Yavapai Republicans' LD01 Executive Committee. Most importantly, I am the founder of LGB Patriots, a nonpartisan, nonprofit advocacy group for lesbians, gay men, and bisexuals, and are proud patriots of the countries which have given us our civil rights equal to all. Our gay pride colors are red, white, and blue, not rainbow. We honor the flags of our countries and not the transgender progress rainbow banner. I watched the testimony of the last board meeting of House of Hughes, Sylvia Zimi, and the other advocates for, I quote, the LGBTQAI plus community. And I'd like to break that down for you. What does LGBTQAI plus mean in fact? LGB stands for lesbians, gay men, and bisexual, same-sex attracted. LGB stands for, I beg your pardon, we are not queer, we are not transsexuals. Q for queer is the most egregious slur on homosexuals. It's akin to calling a black American by the N-word. Queer is the first word LGB hear when they're being identified in public by a homophobe, and queer is the last word they hear before they are beaten senseless. House of Hughes, Sylvia Zimi testified here that she is queer. That is not gay emancipation, that's rainbow pride indoctrination. House of Hughes would like this council to believe that family-friendly drag shows are benign. One has to ask, what do childless homosexual men have any business performing what has always been gay adult entertainment to other people's children? The reason is that there is a rainbow pride poison agenda here to indoctrinate your children, starting with dress up, make up, and act up, which then leads to choosing an identity, choosing a fluid sexuality, and most egregious, choosing from any number of fabricated genders. We do not, how do we know that this is the LGBTQA plus agenda? Because they have told us so repeatedly. At Gay Pride shame parades this year, 2003, chanting, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. Gay Men's Chorus San Francisco created a song called We're Coming for Your Children with lyrics, you think we're coming for your children? This time you are right, bit by bit, you will hardly notice it, we are coming for your children. Does that sound benign to you? And I have a warning for Prescott City Council from a gay man who marched for gay civil rights in the 1970s. LGBTQA plus community, rainbow pride people have an agenda to turn Prescott into Bisbee and Old Town Cottonwood as a rainbow pride town. House of Hughes testified that they don't feel safe in Prescott unless they are surrounded by rainbow and transgender banners. I'm testifying that I don't feel safe in Bisbee, Arizona, which has become a rainbow pride town because the LGBTQAI plus community rejects anyone, including LGB, who do not adhere to their pride and transgender agenda. It has become a rainbow cult town, and Prescott is their next target. When I marched in 1979, 10 years after the Stonewall riots, which formed the start of the gay rights movement, we marched for gay acceptance, a place in civil society. If you want a place in society, then you need to know your place in society, and it is not to turn society into a gay society. That's their agenda. I am affirming that this gay man feels safe in Prescott, not when I'm forced to see rainbow banners on every corner, but the presence of my American family. Citizens going about the business, open carrying, the presence of law enforcement, clean streets and rule of law, and an ordered council. Thank you.
Lucy Wheat.
Hi, my name is Lucy Wheat, and I live at 11375 East Mingus Vista Drive in Prescott Valley. Thank you, City of Prescott Council, for this opportunity to speak for you today. I am an Arizona and Prescott Valley resident. I am also the first vice chair of the Yavapai County Republican Committee. Apparently, I am considered an LGBTQAI hater, according to House of Hughes. Sylvia testimony before the council because I protested their Rainbow Pride drag queen event in June. That comes as a surprise to me because I advocate closely with LGB Patriots, an Arizona lesbian, gay, and bisexual group who are pride patriots of this country, which gives them their civil rights. LGBT patriots reject the Rainbow Pride agenda and the sexualizing of kids, our kids, not their kids. Heda Faye testified in support of House of Hugh's Rainbow Pride drag queen event, reminding this council of the drag's First Amendment free speech right, but conveniently skipped mentioning that I also enjoy the First Amendment right to speak out and the right to a peaceful protest. Ms. Faye also reminded the council that the LGBTQI+ community are taxpayers and voters. The vast majority of the city of Prescott's constituents are red, white, and blue, not rainbow. Heda and Faye require this council to make them feel safe in Prescott by turning Prescott into a Rainbow Pride town, festooned with Rainbow Pride transgender banners instead of Old Glory. This 5.6 LGB constituency, according to the 2020 census, requires the remaining 94.4% allow access to our children to indoctrinate them into dress up, make up, act up, and a host of fluid sexualities and fabricated genders. This makes me feel very unsafe. I wasn't sure if I had your attention. Quite frankly, the jig is up. The LGBT Patriots Rainbow Pride, Mr. Montoya, community, which usurps LGBT civil rights and begun advocating for an exclusive transgender agenda, we know that they are what they're up to because they have repeatedly told us, as Jerry Herron said. I am asking the Prescott City Council to start enforcing ordinances that are in place to protect our children of Yavapai County from being sexualized. This is a reminder, the age of consent is 18 years old here in the state of Arizona. Thank you.
Sam Boyles.
I've been a resident of Prescott for 20 years in December. I came from California. I go to church, Prescott Life Church of Highway 89. Every Thursday morning, about 10 minutes ago, I do intercessory prayer. We pray for you, Mr. Mayor, and I pray for everybody here. God will give you the right wisdom to make decisions about things. And what she was saying is, well, I was going to say is, I see mountains being scarred everywhere, new roads going in and everything. I just wonder how our power grid is, how our water supply is, and where our trash goes. I know the governor of California, to my opinion, is a knucklehead. They had a heat wave. He tells the people not to run your air conditioners and don't plug in your electric cars. This here whole electric thing, I think, as far as electric cars, are great. But I think we need to put a power grid across this country and here if we need it, so we can do these things. And also, this young lady was saying, in the book of Genesis, God made man, made woman. He didn't make anything else. There was two towns named Sodom and Gomorrah that God just smoked those towns and only saved 4 people. 2 angels came to get the family out. And the men of the town came and wanted to have sex with the angels. They came in the form of men. The man offered 2 virgin daughters and said, no, we want the man. So the angels walked outside and blinded everybody. If we don't watch the things that we're doing in this country, I never thought they'd have drag queens at school. I know God doesn't like that, because the Bible says that. And the people on this board here that's responsible to face God, you make decisions like that.
That's all, Mayor.
All right, we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody on the council want to pull anything from 9A through G? Well, hearing none, I do want to pull items E and F strictly for discussion because I think they are of interest to the community at large. So I'll entertain a motion on the remaining items.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 9A, B, C, D, and G.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Move to item 9E.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is for a contract with Ironclad Environmental Services for the emergency procurement of equipment and services for a wastewater bypass in an amount not to exceed $300,000. As this item was not previously budgeted, but was an emergency procurement for bypass around Willow Lake, which has, as you know, been an ongoing issue. And we have Steve Olfers here who can provide a little bit of context around that.
Good afternoon, Steve Olfers, Utilities Manager with the Public Works Department. We've had many discussions in this in public and media about the operations and the installation of this this temporary bypass. We had a failure there, as you can see on the valve. I don't think I have a pointer. Oh, there it is. Look at that. It doesn't work on the thing. Okay, apologize. We have a valve failure down near the south in our Prescott Lakes Regional Lift Station. That valve was unable to be fixed because of its location. The manhole was actually filled with sewage, so it made it very difficult to get a man or person in there. The only solution that we could come up with was bypassing all of the sewage that runs along that route, approximately 1.5 million gallons a day. That bypass was installed, and last week we were able to make the appropriate repair, and as of today, we'll be tearing it back down. So this was the whole point was to try to keep 1.5 million gallons of sewage out of Willow Lake.
Well, I just thought I'd bring this out into a public discussion because even though I applaud you, Steve, for getting this information out, I was approached by 3 different people over the last 2 days saying, what the heck is that pipe for? So once we had a chance to explain the necessity of it, they all said, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think it was unanimous within the Public Works Department as well.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I will say I was out going door to door in this very neighborhood for an unrelated matter. And I had people ask me about this too. And so I'm also with the mayor here that it's good that any chance we get people, I think some people thought that was a permanent structure that was going to go in place. And so
nope, it should be gone within the next 2 weeks.
I think there will be a sigh of relief among some people who were very concerned about an unsightly pipe that they saw.
Probably a sigh and a whiff. Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve, I do have a question. In reading the council packet, the first sentence in the background says, in mid-July, the Public Works Department identified a severely leaking valve at the Prescott Lakes Regional Sewer Lift Station. Was that severely leaking valve, was the sewage contained, or did some of that get into the environment? I just was curious because it doesn't really give any background as where that leaking sewage was going.
We were able to contain it, the majority of it, on our site. We caught the leak very early. We were able to make an adjustment within the process so that it would not go into the environment. But the danger was there if that valve had completely separated, and it would have been uncontrollable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Steve, and I'll entertain a motion on item 9E.
I move to accept consent agenda item 9E. Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Very good, Steve. I know you're up again.
I'm up again, yes, sir.
I thought it would be appropriate to discuss 9F. Obviously, this is a ongoing effort to reduce the amount of arsenic in our potable water source.
Yes, sir.
I thought it would be good to just discuss exactly how that's being done and our ongoing efforts to continue to make our potable water as safe as possible.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We're very fortunate in that we do have arsenic in several of our wells, but we're able to blend it out using our blending techniques. However, well number 3 at the airport is a standalone well that requires a on-site treatment facility. It's a granular ferric hydroxide media using pressure vessels. This media will absorb or adsorb the arsenic, which is then removed and it's actually locked up so it cannot leach out of the media. Once that media is exhausted, you can think of it as it's very similar to granular carbon or along those lines. So once that is exhausted, all the pores for taking the arsenic out are full. We have to remove that. That is then landfilled, which is the appropriate way to dispose of it. And then new media is brought in. That media is it's relatively recent type of media. It's a fairly brand new media to the market, and it will, once removed and replaced, it will continue removing arsenic for another couple years. We've been working on the process control for that process because the media lifetime is contingent on how much arsenic we remove. So we're kind of still trying to get a feel for how that process works. It's a little bit advanced for some of our operators, but we're working on understanding how to go about it. So we're working towards that, and all this will do is take the old media out, put the new media in, and we'll be back on task.
Well, I know that arsenic, especially in our environment, is a naturally occurring mineral, and being able to remove it and lower it below significantly, 20% below the EPA minimum standard of 10 parts per million, I believe, is a significant improvement. And I think as more of this process of treating contaminants within our water supply, and I'm talking about the PFAs and the PFOAs, I think we'll see probably some advanced technology to be able to be even more effective as we deal with the additional contaminants, along with the ability to remove arsenic through a media absorption, and then being able to dispose of that in a relatively safe and environmentally supportive manner.
Yes, sir. I didn't know if that was a question or not.
Well, it was kind of a statement there, but I figured you'd probably want to agree with me.
Yes, sir.
So I just thought this is another area that I've heard a lot of concerns about, and the fact that we're doing, I think, more than is required, I think is important for the public to know. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda item 9F.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you very much, Steve. Okay, we'll start with item 10A.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is our annual IGA with the Yavapai County Flood Control District for reimbursement of design and construction costs related to various drainage projects we've had throughout the city. And we have Brian here to provide a little bit of overview and tell us how maybe we might spend these going forward.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Brian Reese with City of Prescott Public Works. And today I have for you an item to adopt Resolution 2023-1864, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Yavapai Flood Control District to accept the funding of $875,000 towards various drainage improvements within the City of Prescott for fiscal year 2024. So the Yavapai County Flood Control District is a special tax district which generates from funds through property tax revenue for support of planning, designing, construction, and maintenance of flood control improvements. So the district provides funding assistance to local government agencies for drainage projects. These funds can be used to support projects within the city that can provide stormwater control and mitigate flood issues on an as-need basis. The intergovernmental agreement listed several projects within the city that these funds could be used for. They included the Yavapai Hills Hornet Drive Drainage Improvement Project, the Merritt Lincoln Ruth Roadway Improvement Project, the Montezuma Granite Creek Bridge Scupper Project, Pleasant Street Roadway Improvements, and the Airport Area Drainage Master Plan. So it is anticipated that the majority of these funds are probably going to be used for the Yavapai Hills and the Merritt Lincoln Ruth projects. However, all the projects on the list could be potentially used as the need arises. So that basically concludes just a brief description of the IGA as it's presented, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have on it.
Well, I got to ask you, what's a scupper?
So a scupper is like a drain. It's like a drop inlet. It'd be used to collect water from the curb and gutter on the road and bring it out of the road and safely discharge it into a stream or into a downstream pipe or wherever it needs to go in order to not flood the roadway.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to expand my vocabulary. Thank you. Do we have any questions or concerns? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2023-2024.
Second.
Any further discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
We'll move on to item 10B.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is for the approval of a contract with Deccan International for some public safety software for automating fire engine coverage. Chief Holger's here. He's going to present a little bit of background on the software and how it will provide predictive analytics for us, which would hopefully reduce how much fire trucks have to move around to fill holes and hopefully lead us to some future improvements in our response times.
Indeed. Mayor and Council, Holger Jura, Fire Chief. Also in the audience is Scott Freitag, the Fire Chief of the Central Arizona Fire and Medical Authority, who we're partnering in this project with, Jim DeLong, the Dispatch Director, as well as the Police Chief, Amy Bonney. It's really important that we highlight that. Our project manager, Jason Hardison, is also in the room from our side, and then Battalion Chief Schuster from CAFMA is the project manager on that end. So just as a reminder, our strategic plan called for a couple of priorities that link with this project. One of them is obviously to find innovative and technology-based solutions to help us with our response time. It's not just new stations that are going to help us cope with the rapid growth that we're seeing in the community. We also need to make sure that we're implementing innovative technologies that help us reduce some of those response times and increase efficiency. The other component of this, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on here, is there's a focus on firefighter wellness. So what is a move-up module? Let's just get into that first and get that definition out of the way. So our response system on the fire side has 15 stations, 5 from the city of Prescott and 10 from Central Arizona Fire and Medical Authority. And on a daily basis, as you can imagine, as calls come in, for instance, here in the downtown area, and engines get committed to emergencies, we have to move the system around. So for instance, the station 75 by Costco, might move up here into downtown Prescott, or it might even move up into Prescott Valley. Because really, in terms of those 15 engines, there are no boundaries. We're sending the closest appropriate resource. In order for us to do that, currently we use a static system that the dispatchers say, okay, if this area is empty, we need to move an engine over here. And it doesn't take into account the time of day, the time of year, traffic patterns, and it also doesn't study the predictive analytics. And there's a huge data pool out there that we can tap into. So Deccan International is a GIS-based company, and they have come up with a module that basically attaches to the back end of our existing computer-aided dispatch system. And what that does is looks at actual traffic patterns, what's going on, and can, to some extent, actually predict where an emergency may happen. So what does that mean to an engine company on a daily basis? Well, first of all, when you're getting in the engine, there's wear and tear just on the engine. Fuel usage, things like that. But firefighters have to stop a training drill, they have to stop an activity, for instance, like exercise, get on that rig and move out. Well, if there's no effective outcome of that in terms of on a response time, we need to look at something a little bit different. And this move up module, I give you some case studies here in a second, has actually been proven to help us with some of that predictive analytics. So for instance, the system will tell us when maybe an engine should just stay where it's at because it's more likely the call will be in their area rather than the one that they're going to cover. So that's basically what we're talking about here on a global scale. Now, let's talk a little bit of, let's give you a little bit of
Knowing
a video
where to
preview
place
here.
your resources at the right time can be like solving a puzzle. With so many potential options, how can you be sure you have the right one? Every day, fire and EMS leaders are faced with making emergency coverage decisions that directly impact their communities. Decisions such as, what are our real-time and upcoming gaps in response coverage, and what can be done to address them? How do I create consistency in policy and move-up practices across our dispatching team? Where do I move our emergency resources in order to optimize our response times? And how can I accurately pre-plan our response coverage to meet different demands, like traffic congestion or a planned special event? With so many real-time decisions at stake, it's time to get Deccan International on board to help. For the past 25 years, Deccan International has been recognized as the global leader in fire and EMS solutions. Designed to deliver optimal, practical, and automated move-up recommendations, Deccan's coverage monitoring solutions employ rigorous optimization algorithms using historical data and fully customizable configurations that integrate seamlessly with your computer-aided dispatch system, all in real time. Partnering with your agency's leadership, Deccan collaborates firsthand with your department to create custom business rules and move-up strategies, automate your existing static plans, and guarantee balanced coverage, providing your dispatchers with the real-time support they need. Analyzing both real-time and historical data, Deccan provides your team with the ability to quickly assess your real-time and future coverage needs in order to improve situational awareness for communications center staff and field personnel, provide automated and dynamic move-up recommendations without creating additional gaps in coverage, provide accurate travel time projections for move-ups utilizing traffic pattern data, allow for dynamic, complex system status management plans to be easily implemented, and many other analyses to help tackle the every-second, all-day decisions dispatchers face, all to enhance coverage and better serve your community. Deccan empowers your department with the understanding and foresight needed to gain confidence and improve your service with real-time move-up recommendations, all accessible from your mobile device. Schedule a demo to learn more about how Deccan can help you optimize your system coverage with tools today.
So basically, what one of the most impactful things that I've heard during the rollout of this project is Jason actually passed on the story that a system that has been using this for a while, they figured out that really when there's a move-up recommendation for a certain engine company to move into a certain area, that is almost beginning the response before the emergency alarm bell ever goes off. So if you think about it from that perspective, that's pretty powerful. And they actually called that a batting average. And Jason, what was the batting average of how many times that system actually generates a call?
8 out of 10 times.
8 out of 10.
Rolling, they then kick the call route to that move-up area. So that 80% batting average.
Yeah, so that's pretty effective. Now,
We're not currently anywhere close to that now.
right.
You have.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. So two systems that I think really tell this story is in Johnson County, Kansas. That's a system actually that's somewhat similar to ours. They were able to reduce the number of move-ups by 40%. So we haven't even gotten into the response time side of this yet. Imagine if we take 40% of those vehicle movements out of our system, reduces fuel costs, reduces wear and tear, and again, helps us with that firefighter wellness component. But at the same time, they were able to improve the response time by over 2% without adding a single unit or without doing anything other than implementing the system. Contra Costa, California, you see that there, 23% reduction when you compared it to 9 months in 2019 and then 9 months in 2020. So that's pretty dramatic improvements. Some other things I want to just quickly talk about is dispatcher workload. There's a lot of things. If you've ever had a chance to visit our dispatch center, if you haven't, I would recommend it. They are extraordinarily busy, and this helps them with situational awareness, which helps at the end with firefighter safety and officer safety as well. We're also going to help with battalion chief involvement in system status management. We have 3 battalion chiefs, 2 between Central Arizona and 1 for us. They're constantly trying to work, and this actually draws them further in that system management. There's a cultural shift here that we're trying to implement as well. Smarter, not harder, obviously. Be innovative. And then finally, also, and this is the key point really, I think, for this body, is we are doing everything that we can to maximize the efficiency of the system as we talk about much bigger capital asks like new fire stations. We want to make sure that when we do get to that piece, that you're sure that we've taken all the measures that we can to maximize what we currently have. So a few things. It's going to take about 2 to 3 months to implement the software and 12 months for full integration. And one of the reasons for that is when you're thinking about all this big data moving around, it takes some time to calibrate that and make it efficient. I mentioned already PRCC, CAFMA, and of course our IT department are helping us implement this. And it may expand to future providers in the system. Other fire departments and EMS providers may want to jump on board, which will obviously help us distribute that cost with more partners. It is not cheap, but if you think about what it's going to do, we're probably going to recoup a lot of that just in fuel savings alone. So in year 1, taxes included, you're looking at $173,000. That is split 50-50 between us and Central Arizona Fire and Medical Authority as part of the packet that you have. You have Chief Freitag's letter of commitment. It is in their fiscal year 23 budget or 24 budget as well, and so we're funding this jointly, and that includes and extends to the year 2 maintenance support fees, which come in at $52,270. So that is the overall cost of this project. Obviously, the out years, those maintenance and support fees continue. What questions can I answer? That was a lot. Sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, I guess my question is, you kind of alluded to the police department at the beginning of this presentation, and I imagine it's not a one-for-one kind of situation where this type of technology could directly apply to the police department, but is there an application that the police, or you talked about EMS, or is that not, am I thinking of the system in the wrong way?
So the algorithm specific is here to fire, but I don't know if Chief Bonney, I don't know if there's a product out there to pre-position police resources like this. It doesn't look like she's aware of any. So we're a little bit more predictable, I would say, on the fire side. So, oh, yes.
And I've been speaking with Deccan, and they say there's only one police department in the country that's utilizing Deccan. I don't know
Okay.
what it's not really key.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chief, do you want to restate that answer for the record? I don't think that would probably
Yeah,
be picked up
so
on
yeah, sounds like there's one police department using it currently. Thank you.
Councilwoman can tell me.
Hi, Chief.
Hi.
When you data out of this program, if you live in a retirement community like we do, and you have a health problem, let's say in that household, will that change the data if you make exponentially more trips to one area? Will that be registered that? I mean, is it that finite? Just
It may not be that finite. I mean, we're talking about heat mapping and aggregate data. Now, of course, if there are multiple customers in that neighborhood that begin to increase that call volume over time, absolutely, that move up recommendation might change. So when you're looking, for instance, in North Prescott, and we start bringing that growth on and more incidents happen in that area, the system will adjust and adapt to that experience. It's smart, basically, that way, and helps us, keep those move-up recommendations dynamic and alive with where the community is currently at.
does this mean that Prescott is stepping into AI? Just curious.
It's
Thank
not
you.
quite AI. I'm glad you asked that question. It's not totally AI. This is still static algorithms to some extent, which are proven math. But again, yeah, it is AI-like, but it is not full AI.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chief, this is not an inexpensive software program. And even though CAFMA is going to be sharing the cost, thank you, Chief. How about our ambulance providers? They're going to benefit from this too, are they not?
So they're not going to directly benefit from that right now because they're not going to be in this aggregate data. It's just going to be those fire resources. However, the system is capable of implementing both of those ambulance providers into the system if that's what they choose. There has been some preliminary conversations from both of those providers actually showing some interest in getting into the system. Now, that's not a commitment yet, but we have had conversations and heard about that, which would greatly improve the overall efficiency of the system. If you add the ambulances, it's even going to help us further.
How about integrating the predictability with the ongoing efforts that we're working on to integrate our traffic movement, our vehicle image detection, et cetera, because you're trying to predict how best to move vehicles in a efficient manner. And if you're going to be monitoring traffic flow, being able to pick up the data that we're starting to be able to collect on Willow Creek Road and some of the other areas on the major high traffic arterials, I think would be very beneficial for this system if it's capable of doing that.
I believe it uses open source traffic monitoring data. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's open source as well as.
Will you just come up to the microphone? Thanks.
Jason Hardison, engineer with Prescott Fire. So it's open source. It's a web-based program initially, so it's integrated into the CAD system from a web-based browser. So it's integrating Google and all kinds of things, but it's also integrating data that is available. So like response times. So response times at 2 p.m. from, let's say, the hospital to the airport. Whatever those times are going to be from 2017 all the way through to today. And as that changes, the traffic is going to be changing from today to a year from now. It's integrating those updated response times that it would take at 2 p.m. on a Monday versus.
So are you picking up some type of GPS data in order to determine what those times are at any particular live moment?
Yes, our computer-aided dispatch system is already on an automatic vehicle location backbone. That's automatically part of the system that this actually attaches to the back end of. So you have that GIS and GPS data integrated into this already. But what Jason was just talking about is basically it looks at the response time from en route to on scene and looks at that aggregate data specifically to that block in time over the last couple of years and makes a predictive call between that and the open source data of live traffic to figure out what that system currently looks like. As you can imagine, for instance, the 4th of July in Courthouse Square looks much different than the 20th of November. So.
Right, yeah, and it takes in all of that data based on time, say 2 a.m. on a Monday night's response times are going to be way different than 2 p.m. or July 4th or whatever it is. So all that is
Chief, how are you
incorporated, and it has so many variables. that are incorporated into.
How are you going to measure the effectiveness of this software?
I'm very glad you brought that up. So, Plan, Do, Check, Act, obviously. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have plenty of pre-implementation data, as you can imagine. And obviously, at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, as part of our more metric-driven strategic plan, as well as our annual report to council, this will definitely be part of that. In addition, we've got reaccreditation coming next spring and our full reaccreditation in a year and a half. And I have a feeling the accrediting body is going to be very interested in seeing the impact of that. And that is one of the reasons why we're so dedicated on continuous improvement using the accreditation model, because this is one of the key metrics that is measured. And so there's going to be multiple looks at the effectiveness of this software package. And of course, for instance, if we're not getting the effectiveness that we want and we can't squeeze it out, we're probably not going to continue to pay the bill and continue using something that's not going to be effective for us.
Well, I know there's always an initial investment that you have to make, but then you've got to be able to have quality measurements to be able to justify that you're getting the return on investment that you expect.
Correct.
So does the accreditation look at move-ups? And I know they look at response times for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Unit movements, unit reliability, workload, all those things are factors that we measure already within the accreditation documents. And it's definitely going to be, it's one of the more, the move up piece is actually one of the easiest metrics because it's simply an output measure that's easy to count. And, you know, it's just a difference between what you did before and what you're doing now. So that'll be a pretty easy metric. I think we're going to see a quick reduction in move ups. It's going to be the response time metrics that I think are going to take a little bit of time for us to really dig down and see the impact of that.
Are you aware if we adopt this, does this have any impact on homeowners' insurance rates?
Not that I'm aware of.
Has any of the other agencies or cities that have adopted this found that to be a positive impact?
Yeah, I mean, based on the case studies that you saw, that reduction in response time, but back to the insurance rating, one of the things that the ISO, which is the body that actually establishes those ISO ratings, they actually, interestingly enough, don't take into consideration response times. It is the number of stations, the distance from that station for the coverage, much more static things that go into determining those ISO ratings. And of course, we're working on that constantly as well, making sure, for instance, a new station would reduce an ISO rating or have an impact, I should say, on an ISO rating. Response times, interestingly enough, like I said, are not a significant part of an ISO rating.
Boy, that's hard to believe.
It is changing, I believe.
Councilman Tenney.
Thank you. Chief, I believe whatever you say.
Ask my wife, that's dangerous.
All right, fair enough. I'm confident the mayor does as well, but boy, it sure strikes me as odd as well. Initially hearing that, I appreciate that. Can you summarize for me? I'm having a hard time toggling back and forth between my request to speak screens and the information on this. Summarize for us what we're paying. It's a 3-year contract, if I understood correctly. What we're paying year 1, what we pay year 2, and what we pay year 3.
So it is actually a 2-year contract initially. So year 1 is the $173,000, which is the startup fee as well as the maintenance fee for year 1. The $52,000 is the maintenance fee, support fee for year 2, including tax.
And is that same fee for year 3 as well?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for clarification.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question along a similar line of thinking, I guess. Let's imagine that, say, we're pleasantly surprised with the outcomes that we're getting out of this software going forward, but suddenly maybe CAFMA and Chief Freitag have decided to diverge and they say, you know, this isn't worthwhile. I imagine that's a pretty unlikely scenario, but what would it look like in terms of is there an ability for one partner to continue without the other? Obviously, we would absorb more cost. And then another scenario, I guess I would wonder if, let's say we go into year 3 and suddenly AMR or different, you know, whoever our EMT provider is, kind of says, hey, we want in on this too, is there a cost reduction that is contemplated in that contract?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. So I'll answer the second point first. I'm going to invite Chief Freitag to speak a little bit to the first point, if you don't mind coming up to the mic while I answer this piece. So absolutely, as more partners come in, the PRCC backbone model in terms of how things are invoiced can include this, and that would reduce the individual cost to both Central Arizona and us by including another partner in it. We're looking for that. But in terms of less agencies, less data, but I think really it's important to talk about an intergovernmental relationship because we're symbiotic, and I think hearing from you as to the commitment might be a good idea.
Mayor, Council, Scott Freitag, Fire Chief, Central Arizona Fire and Medical Authority, thank you for inviting me up here today to discuss this with you. Our two agencies are really one. We may have a different name on the side of the engines, but we work as one system. So anything that we do has an impact on Prescott. Anything Prescott does has an impact on us. So the software is vitally important to both agencies for a number of reasons. One, today move-ups are based on best guess, and sometimes not even best, just the best we can do. So it puts a lot more workload on the dispatchers and puts a lot more workload on the crews when we're moving engines to places where maybe they don't need to go. So for us, to the mayor's question, our ISO rating took a hit. And it took a hit because we don't have enough deployable resources and we don't have enough personnel to service all of the area that we cover as Prescott Valley continues to grow exponentially in areas further away from the town center. So what they look for is an effective firefighting force in 16 minutes with 15 firefighters. We don't get an effective firefighting force of 15 in 3 hours. We get 12 in maybe 20, 30 minutes. So from the standpoint of, hey, if I'm moving this engine just randomly based on what we think might happen versus using actual data, now that engine's further out of the system, which increases the response time I have to get an effective firefighting force on scene. So it can have an impact from that perspective. At the same time, we're working on a joint standards of cover for accreditation as we move forward with ours as well. This will be the first time in this area we've had it. Again, CAFMA cannot operate without the City of Prescott, and the City of Prescott needs CAFMA in order to provide services as well, working as one system. So that joint standards of cover will be much more robust with this move-up module where we're using actual analytical data. For example, to your question about a retirement community, if Station 75 is right by Touchmark, well, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday, if downtown, if 71 goes out, does 75 really need to move into downtown on a Tuesday afternoon? Or is it more likely that there's going to be a call that goes out somewhere in the area around 75, whether it's Costco or Touchmark? But if it's July 4th, more likely maybe a call in downtown, so you move that engine. Today it's just, I don't know, move the engine and hope for the best. So we are really hoping by implementing the software system that overall the emergency services systems throughout the Quad Cities is improved dramatically. And if we can reduce even 20% in the move-ups, the coverage is going to be better for our communities.
Thanks, Chief. Looking at the contract here, I know it's for a 3-year contract with an automatic renewal for a second 3-year period, and it references a master price agreement. So I don't see any cap on the escalation of that price agreement. And once sometimes you get very dependent on some of these software programs, you become almost at the mercy of their renewal contracts. Now, when you're dealing with the software that has no hardware that goes along with it, this is almost, you can't blame supply chain or labor costs or things like that to renew. Do you have some way of protecting the price escalation should we decide to extend for a second 3-year period?
Yeah, in terms of that, obviously, since there is no escalation cap, we would take a hard look and consider not renewing if it is indeed outstretching what we consider reasonable. I think for a software contract like this, anywhere between 3 to 5% year over year is a reasonable increase. If it's anything beyond that, we engage the company and ask what's really behind that increase, and they'd have to justify it, and we'd have to do a risk-benefit analysis at that time to see if it actually was worth continuing that relationship. I would imagine, though, because the predominant customer of DECN are governmental partners, we wouldn't be the only jurisdiction having that conversation with this vendor, and they probably wouldn't be very successful if that outpaced that 3 to 5% and that reasonable increase for covering, normal inflation.
Well, why don't we ask for that now?
Sure can.
Yeah. All right, Chief. I expect you to do that. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question kind of along the lines of what the mayor's saying, which is, I guess I wonder if there's a way, as we're analyzing the impacts of using the software, assuming that there is a benefit for it, if there's a way to work with maybe our finance department to identify what the cost savings are, so we can kind of stack those benefits, in a quantifiable way and say, hey, even though they're asking for maybe 3 to 5% more this year, which is within reason, we've actually continued to get year-over-year benefit of X dollars in fuel savings or staff hours or whatever. Just a thought.
Yeah, and I'm smiling because this is exactly where I'm hoping to take this conversation. It is exactly that cost benefit and that ongoing analysis that you speak of that I think is so ripe for this particular deployment. You can't do that with some of the other initiatives as well as something like this. So, yeah.
Well, I, for one, have a lot of confidence in your data management. So, any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to recommend approval of city contract number 2024-040.
Second.
A motion and second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you again, Chief, and thank you, Scott.
Thank you all.
Our next item is for the adoption of ordinance number 2023-1832, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending Prescott City Code Title II, Chapter 2-1, Section 2-7-4, establishing the Prescott City Court assessment fee.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. Joseph Young, City Attorney. I'd like to recognize and thank, first of all, Judge Mitch Padilla, who's here also as this assessment fee impacts the courts, and Assistant City Attorney Elaine Moore, who does most of the or essentially all of the prosecutions in our office. During the budget cycle process, we identified that the court and our office were processing an awful lot of cases and identified a deficiency in staffing that we would like to correct in the long run, and identified an assessment fee as a possible opportunity or a solution to address those needs without impacting the general fund, which is essentially our public safety fund. So the proposed fee was posted on the city's website more than 60 days ago as required by law, and we received some feedback, especially initially, but not a whole lot over time. And I wanted to address, first of all, the feedback that we received, and then Ms. Moore can get into it. And I think, who's got the controller?
I do.
All right. There we go. So what is the court assessment fee? An assessment fee, and there are many courts or most courts throughout the state have an assessment fee, and it has a bunch of different names throughout the state. An assessment fee, a user fee, supervision fee, enhancement fee. They're just fees ordered by the court and the judge that go to pay the services that are being used. Essentially, as we've talked about before, general fund fuels our law enforcement throughout the city. So in that way, everybody that pays taxes is subsidizing criminal endeavors. And so this is a way to shift that burden from all of the taxpayers to those using the services, defendants. So these fees throughout the state range from $10 to over $100. I've seen as high as $150. And they aid in covering court, legal, and administrative expenses. And as I mentioned, they're charged to defendants convicted of a crime, not to anyone charged of a crime. So I think we might have skipped one. There we go. Some of the comments that we received, and we wanted to address them directly, is that this was another tax to be paid by the taxpayers. It's not. It's, as I mentioned, only those convicted of a crime will pay that fee. The other thing was the thought that, and I kind of addressed that individuals charged of a crime, just by getting themselves caught in a system, would be paying a fee just to be part of it, or pay to prove themselves innocent. But it was only for those convicted of a crime, and that it's an unnecessary payment. And as Ms. Moore will talk about in a minute, the amount of cases is growing through the roof within the city. And each of those cases costs money. The technology that we have to pay for costs money. And there are fines that are associated with each of the different crimes, but the majority, and the vast majority of most criminal fines, goes to the state and kind of funds statewide processes. So this is our assessment fee. You'll see the language directly from the ordinance. It'll be $75 per resolved case. It will apply to defendants after they've been convicted, and it will be split between the legal department of the city and the city court at $40 for the city attorney's office, and $35 of that fee will be directly to the court for their staffing needs.
So kind of going along with what Mr. Young had said of how that fund is going to be split up. The nice thing about this fund, when we first came and were discussing something like a diversion program, the diversion program has very strict enforcement as to how you can spend that money as part of the diversion program. This is going to give both the court as well as... No, sorry. So this is going to give some freedom to both our office as well as the court into putting that money where they need it most, whatever resource they need in that period of time or in that fiscal year. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of comparative fees throughout at least our region. So you have Sedona that does about a $50 fee, Chino Valley does a $40 fee, Prescott Valley has a $25 fee, and then you have Dewey Humboldt that has a $79 fee. As Mr. Young mentioned, I've actually worked in a couple of justice courts that one had a $127 fee and one had about a $145 fee. So I think the 75 is right in line with what we're seeing across the state and certainly within our area. And then also to have that split between two entities that are going to be able to use that to benefit the community as well is going to be beneficial. We took a look at the last 3 fiscal years in terms of how
Mayor
many
Pro
cases.
Tem, you had a question.
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry to stop you there. I just want to go back to something you mentioned, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on how this works. So the diversion program that we're using, do those folks also pay this $75 fee, or they're separate to a separate schedule of fees?
They would not pay this fee.
Okay.
It's only those that are going to be convicted of a criminal.
Got it. And so by nature of being diverted, they don't have to pay the fee?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we took a look at the last 3 fiscal years in terms of how many cases were going through the Prescott Municipal Court. And so when we are looking at the filings, the dispositions, so keep in mind, so we're looking at about 2,000, a little over 2,000 cases that are new filings within the court every year. And that is growing, as Mr. Young mentioned. But you also have cases that either were on warrant status or they just are pending. So something we're in the process of discovery or something like that. And so you do have some cases that are going to initially be filed in 1 year and they're not going to be resolved until the next. And so that's why you might see more dispositions in 1 year as opposed to another, just based on kind of that flow. But if you look at the last 3 years, if we would have had this fee implemented between July 2020 to 2021, this could have brought in $248,100 in revenue. Going all the way to July 2022 to June of 2023, we would have been looking at about $347,775. And again, that would be the total. I didn't break that up in terms of what the city attorney's office versus the court would have received, but ultimately that would have been extra into each of our budgets that we could have used for resources that are going to help us be more efficient. As Mr. Young mentioned, and just kind of to give you an idea as far as some of the things that our office would be using it for, if you have 1 hour of body cam footage, when you are disclosing that, it obviously has to be redacted for personal identifying information, different people that are in the background, children, things like that. 1 hour of body cam normal video, when you go through and try to redact that, that usually takes about 2 hours worth of sitting down and trying to get that redacted. So when you take that and then you say, okay, well, now we have 4 officers that have responded to an incident. Now we have 4 body cams that are operating, and you've got to do that redaction 4 times for each of those cameras. So it can get pretty heavy pretty quickly when it comes to depending on the cases. And so that's one area that we would certainly see help having additional resources so that we can have additional resources to do that redaction. And I think if Judge Padilla wants to come up and at least address what the some of the issues that they're seeing within the court system as well. Any cases that come in, anything that we file from our office is obviously going to go to the court, and that puts on a whole nother legion of notices that have to go out and filings that have to be done.
Councilmember Rusing, you had a question.
Thank you. I was just looking at the rising cases, and it's somewhat alarming because Prescott is, our average age is, 60. We have above average household income. So why are we having all this rise in criminal cases?
So a couple of things that I will just mention. So I've been here about a year. When I started, obviously, we're coming off the tail end of COVID. There's obviously a backlog that takes place. So we're trying to get all of those from a misdemeanor prosecution standpoint. The statute of limitations is 1 year from the date of violation. So if there's a backlog in the system, which we have been working diligently to get rid of, but you are going to see an increase, I would say, within the next year to year and a half, just trying to get all of our backlog done. And I mean, ultimately, we are seeing an increase in, I would say, specific types of crimes that are maybe some people would not consider criminal in nature. A lot of criminal traffic, whether that's excessive speeding or even just a hit and run. So a hit and run, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily consider that a criminal offense, but it is under Arizona statute. And I've been seeing a lot more of that lately as well. So those could be at least 2 aspects that are adding to the criminal filings that you might not anticipate or you wouldn't necessarily put in that category, but that I am seeing a rise in on my side of things.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Mr. Young, for kicking this off, and then Ms. Moore. Ms. Moore makes appearances in front of me all the time. I will tell you she's extremely busy, almost to the point where I actually check in with her every once in a while just to make sure she's not going to tip over because of the volume of cases that she has. So it's significant. The things that go on in the city legal department, I have nothing to do with. I'm not necessarily aware of, other than I know there are delays in things that slow down cases that move through the system. What I'll talk about a little bit is how the court will benefit from it. One, it's unrestricted monies, first and foremost, meaning it doesn't need to be spent on a specific issue such as technology. It would be spent on things like technology, but not dedicated to it. There's a variety of different things, including the fact that I would be needing to pay for someone to be at court right now while I've been sitting here in this meeting this afternoon in order to handle walk-in cases or cases that we could, as a court, could have pushed through but weren't able to because I'm not present or I have to pay a pro tem to come in behind me. So being able to utilize funds like that for pro tems allows me to get out and better support what the activities of the court are. So some of the things that I would envision the court using these monies are educational literature, for example, the development of a program, and being able to put on some kind of a community-sponsored informational event that helps individuals who do find themselves in a tough spot, or just simply their adults, family members of somebody who's in a tough spot. And there's just a multitude of different things we could branch into. I would say, just to address a little bit about the rise on the types of cases, I will tell you that domestic violence cases and drug cases that are low-level drug they consume a huge majority of the cases that I see. Needless to say, on the felony side, it's very predominant. But on the misdemeanor side, which is what we're dealing with here on a day-to-day basis, domestic violence is huge. So, and I get requests all the time from victims of domestic violence requesting that no contact orders that have been put in place to protect them, they're asking to remove those, so they can have contact with the individual who perped on them, or the perpetrator. So it's an education. So monies can go into these areas. It really is kind of a little bit of, if we were to be able to know that we can utilize some funds, let the brainstorming begin. How do we begin to help move the court in a manner where there's education, there's information, things of that nature. On a technology side, it's a county building, okay? I was in the county Board of Supervisor meetings here recently, and I was there fighting for dollars, and I received some dollars. I didn't receive enough dollars, and once you get into upgrades, you realize, I wish I knew I needed that to make something complete. This is a place. This is a way that monies could come in. I do want to also mention that there is a separation between what the court is going to be doing and what our city prosecution is going to be doing. So, Ms. Moore works plea agreements many times with clients. The bulk of these cases get disposed or adjudicated through plea agreements. It's up to Ms. Moore, not the court, whether or not part of that plea agreement may include a waiver of this fee. I honor plea agreements unless I find the penalties to be really out of line, and that doesn't happen very often. So that is still a call that's left to city prosecutors in that manner. I also have the latitude that once that case is in front of me and I'm going through the sentencing with an individual, I have the latitude to make a decision as to whether or not the fee should be waived. If it wasn't addressed previously, for example, maybe it should be waived. Maybe there's an individual, and there are a lot of them, that are indigent. Even though all of these cases, for example, in this past period of time, 637 dispositions, not every single one of those people have the wherewithal to make some of these payments. So there is an indigent aspect of this that as a court, I do look at. I weigh it at times. I have what they refer to commonly as frequent flyers, individuals who regularly make appearances. I look at their history. They've been in front of the court 25 to 30 times in the last 10 to 12, 15 years. They don't have a residence. Most of their convictions or the charges that they deal with are trespassing, which immediately tells you right off the bat they probably don't have a place to live. And some business, rightfully so, is saying, please get away. So those are things that get taken into account. So I would just tell you that there is a separation on how we would approach things. We do have different roles that we play in the system, and I would continue to be able to look at those and determine whether or not it applies, should apply, or it shouldn't apply. So, thank you.
Judge Padilla, have you been able to establish your Veterans Court program yet?
Veterans Court is not up and running yet. I know that I earlier spoke about a September target. I do believe it should be by November. I have, though, met with our VA representatives to walk through what the process is going to look at. I've gone to the Mesa Veterans Court. I've been to the Flagstaff Veterans Court. Next week, I'm in Kingman at their Veterans Court. And the whole idea is to see how they operate. They do operate completely different. I have my ideas on how we're going to kick this off, and I have a meeting with Mr. McGrain from the County Attorney's Office here coming up first. He is essentially my first block that needs to be checked in going ahead and beginning to move forward. City Attorney here will get folded in to that. Bottom line is it's coming. It's not as quick as I'd like, but it is coming, yes.
Thank you, Judge, and I hope maybe a little bit of these revenue resources might be able to support the establishment and the ongoing effectiveness of that program.
It definitely would, yes.
Thank you.
And I would just say, kind of to wrap up, I've been a prosecutor and worked with prosecutor for a long time. I have never seen anybody handle as many cases as Ms. Moore currently is. And I know that the court is very busy as well and needs staffing. I think that I'm painfully aware of how many asks that you receive as counsel for money and for staffing. There's priority decisions. And this is an attempt to get a paralegal or another prosecutor that can assist in this role and to assist the court with the staffing they need without just asking for money. So.
Very good. If there's nothing further. Any other questions or concerns? No?
I've got a quick question.
Councilman Tenney.
Thank you, Mayor. Joe, can you tell us what are the consequences for someone who can't or does not pay the $75 fee?
The consequences would be as a consequence for not paying any fines. So they'd be subject, if they're on probation, to a revocation of probation, perhaps. And do you want to address that? Or see you coming up?
I was just going to mention, since this would be an assessment fee, it would just go to the fare collection. We would not be able to do any criminal,
Since it's not a probation fee or the criminal fee, they wouldn't be subject to a revocation of probation.
Correct. It would just be sent to collections.
And this is Denise Fosberg, and she's the court administrator there for the consolidated court. Thank you, Denise.
That answers my question. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 2023-1832.
Second.
No public comment, Mayor.
Do we? Okay. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Well, that concludes our agenda for this voting meeting, and I'll close this with a comment from another one of our founding fathers. If we are to guard against ignorance and remain free, it's the responsibility of every American to be informed. Thomas Jefferson. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.